To Empathy Unleashed, deep dive into the empathy phase of design thinking. We hope you get a lot of value out of the session and enjoy the content, whether you're watching this live or on demand. In today's webinar, we hope you get a starting point for integrating empathy into your projects and challenges. And to talk about empathy today, we have Nilofer Erdebil, founder and CEO of Spring 2 Innovation. She's a TEDx Ottawa speaker, author of the international best-selling book Future Proofing by Design, and has dedicated her career to assisting organizations in achieving remarkable advancements through design thinking principles. With that, I'll pass it over to you, Nilofer.
Thank you so much, Fernanda. Pleasure to be here. Thank you, everybody, for coming and for also writing in the chat to let us know where you're coming in from and what you do. Like Fernanda said, I love things very interactive. So please feel free to make comments in the chat. And we also have a Q&A at the very end. So if you have questions and you want to have them addressed at the end, you can put them into the Q&A. And with that, maybe we can go with the first slide. So for our first slide, we actually have a poll for you guys. And in order to get to know you a little bit better, we want to hear a little bit about your thoughts. And so we want to understand, do you regularly reflect on your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors? And Fernanda's just about to pop the poll open, but the options are never, sometimes, often, or always. So do you regularly reflect on your thoughts and feelings and behaviors? Always, we thought multiple times a day, often every week, sometimes once a month. We'll give you guys a few seconds more to put your votes in. Do you regularly reflect on your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors? Two more seconds and we'll close off the poll. Do you regularly reflect on your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors? Never, sometimes, often, or always? All right, maybe we can end the poll. So interestingly, a lot of people often think about their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So every week. And then second is about 41% always, multiple times a day, think about their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, which is amazing to hear. I love that. Next slide. And so the next question is, are you aware of how your actions impact others in your personal or professional life? Yes, no, never thought about it. So this is another poll. Are you aware of how your actions impact others in your personal or professional life? Yes, no, or never thought about it. All right, 2 more seconds. Are you aware of how your actions impact others in your personal or professional life? And I'm going to end the poll now. And so interestingly, most people are saying that they're aware of how their actions impact others in their personal and professional lives. Next slide. So the other questions are more for you to think about and reflect on. And if you want to comment, feel free to comment in the chat. How well do you understand yourself? How well is your self-awareness? Feel free to write in the chat. And for those that might not be aware of what self-awareness is, it means focusing on awareness of yourself, ability to notice your feelings, your physical sensations, your reactions, your habits, your behaviors, and your thoughts. Although 95% of people think that they're self-aware, only 10 to 15% of people are actually self-aware. And this is from a really interesting Harvard Business Review article from a few years ago. And so when we think about this And if you are interested in finding out more about the study and how you test for it, feel free to Google the HBR study by Tasha Urich. It's really fascinating. And so even though a lot of us think we're self-aware, most of us aren't. And so when we think about that, next slide, please. Then think about how well do you really understand your customers and your partners, and what about your team members as well? I think this is a really good opportunity to think through maybe what are some of the things that we might be missing that we don't necessarily know we're missing, and to think about how well do we think our team's understanding or the team's common understanding of our customers are. Because if we're having a hard time understanding our customers, other people on our team are probably having the same challenge of understanding customers or think they understand the customers. What's the common knowledge that the team itself shares? And I love this quote. It says, if we don't understand people, we don't understand business. And I think that is so true. At the heart of businesses, most of the challenges come from people. And so if we don't understand people, we don't understand business. Next slide, please. We work a lot with highly successful organizations that are constantly on the edge of innovation, considering the needs of their end users intrinsically. It's part of their process, their mindset, and their culture. And this is really important because understanding end users isn't a one-time thing. It's continuous. And in a lot of organizations, understanding end users is something a little bit newer, especially outside of customer experience. And so it takes a lot to get this started where we're looking at things from an end user perspective. And then at the highest level, it's about having the culture of looking at things from an end user perspective, having the processes in place and having that mindset in place so that we're constantly looking for signals of what's happening out there, whether it's with our customers or our employees, just to make sure that we're seeing things that we might not have seen in the past and are able to take advantage of some opportunities because we're able to understand our customers and meet their needs better through this understanding. Next slide, please. So today we're talking a lot about empathy, and I love Brené Brown. She does some fantastic work around empathy and vulnerability, and this quote is from her. She says, "Empathy is not relating to an experience. It's connecting to what someone is feeling about an experience." And I think it's really fascinating because a lot of the time we have different backgrounds and how we experience things is quite different. Even the same process, different types of people experience processes in different ways. And so it's about connecting with how they experience these different experiences. Next slide, please. So when we Google empathy in the dictionary, we'll find a definition like the action of understanding, being aware of, being sensitive to, and vicariously experiencing the feelings, thoughts, and experiences of another. And I think this is a really good definition. When we look at empathy in design thinking, or we chat a lot more about recently deeper clarity, which is an advanced form of design thinking. Empathy is about understanding and being aware of other people's feelings, thoughts, and experiences. And it's also a way of being able to see and understand things that we might not have been able to understand in the past. Anybody from the West Coast chiming in? I think I saw someone that was coming in from BC. Yeah, Judy, I think you're in from Vancouver. And so the reason I asked is recently I was up in the Rocky Mountains in Banff, and what I noticed is that we ended up being there on a really cloudy, rainy day. And so we took a bus into Banff, could barely see any mountains around. And then we got into Banff and we're walking around, and it looks like a regular village that you would find anywhere across North America. because it's so cloudy and rainy. And we went into a restaurant and we came out, and the rain and the clouds had dissipated, and then we could actually see the mountains in the background. And I think of empathy as a way of lifting up those clouds and being able to see the things that we weren't able to see in the past. And I think that's a huge component of why it's so important to be empathetic in organizations, and also to have a process and a methodology to bring out empathy in organizations so that everyone can see those mountains in the background and take advantage of the opportunities that come with it, and also take advantages of some things that might be on the horizon that, if they'd been aware of in advance, would have made different decisions. And so I think of empathy as a way of making things a lot clearer within organizations. Next slide. So I think of empathy as perspective taking and putting yourself in someone else's shoes. A lot of staying out of judgment, and it's mostly about listening. And this takes a lot of practice. And that's okay, because empathy is a lot about taking the time and the space to reflect and to listen. And it's about recognizing emotions in another that you might have felt before. It's about communicating that you recognize that emotion as well too. And the level of empathy that you want to bring into an organization depends on the culture of the organization, and also the roles that you play as well too. And again, this is actually from Brené Brown. So we are actually going to show you a commercial in a second. And the reason is because I find marketing organizations are phenomenal at being able to get in touch with people's feelings, and also to be able to provoke emotions and feelings from people in their audience in order to get them to have a connection with the brand, and then ultimately to be able to purchase from the brand. I think if you're a Super Bowl watcher, I'm personally not a football fan, but I love the commercials because they put their best commercials out there that evoke all these different emotions, whether it's laughter or sadness or love. They do a phenomenal job. And so this is actually a commercial for the Google Pixel. Fernanda, do you mind playing it? Thank you.
One face cropped. Move your phone down. One face in frame. Hold for photo.
Dinner for one. Hello.
One face and one head in frame.
Look who's here.
Two faces in frame.
Happy birthday.
Two faces.
Good morning.
Two faces.
First day in the new place.
Two faces. Two faces. Two faces in frame. Three faces in frame. Hold for photo.
What emotions did that provoke in you guys? Did you feel like you were part of that experience? Feel free to write in the chat. Yeah, people are saying awareness. Yeah, what the world looks like from another person's perspective. People are tearing up, and yeah, because it's a really strong emotions that it's provoking, whether it's shared joy. There's a comment in here: whoever wrote the three faces in frame line deserves a raise. That's brilliant. Yeah, love that aspect of it too. And so it's a short commercial that has invoked a lot of different emotions, and it's very relatable too. And it's because they've done such a good job of being able to understand their audience, as well as the people that and the story that they've put into the commercial itself. Next slide, please. in organizations, we have lots of people, and the people make up the culture. It's through values, norms, and behaviors. And so we want to spend a little bit more time making sure that not only do we understand our team, but all the different people within our organization as we think about culture within organizations. Next slide, please. And it's really fascinating. Empathy has a strong direct link to the bottom line in private sector organizations. Companies with strong cultures have seen an increase of 4 times in revenue growth. And so, what is the relationship between culture and empathy? Organizations that are able to build strong cultures are through empathy, understanding one another within the organization, and also making sure that they understand their customers as well, so that they're more customer centric. Companies that have appeared on the Fortune's annual 100 best companies to work for list also have higher average annual returns, with cumulative returns as high as 495%. And with cumulative returns as high as 495%, others have 170%. And if you look at the S&P 500, they have 156%. So quite a different perspective there. So there's a question in the chat on what is a strong culture? And that's a really good question. It depends on what the organization is looking to do and achieve. These numbers are actually from Forbes. Culture is a company's single most powerful advantage, and here's why. And so in there, you can do some reading in terms of what they consider a strong culture. For me, I think strong culture means that people understand one another. They understand how they need to be behaving. What are the norms? A strong culture means that people are respectful of one another, and they're focused, and people are actually happy to be there. We did a webinar a few years ago, and one of our speakers said that a strong culture is one where you could say that the people that you work with, you would consider friends, that you would actually hang out with them outside of the organization. And so that's why I say strong culture differs for each type of an organization, but there's certainly some commonalities in terms of, are people happy to be there? Would they recommend the organization to other people? Do they feel like they're able to achieve their own goals? And then do they believe in the values of the organization itself? And I think you can see organizations with strong cultures as well, and people tend to support organizations with strong cultures with their money if they can. I know organizations like Patagonia and Hoka are really big proponents of making sure that they're looking out for the environment and for their own people as well too. And they have strong followers, even though they don't really do that much advertising. And so thinking about what your organization is and what a strong culture might be for your organization is a starting point. I know for different types and different sizes of organizations, strong culture is going to mean slightly different things. At the heart of a strong culture is empathy, being able to empathize with one another and being able to empathize with end users. Next slide, please. Great question. Thank you. So design thinking helps us connect with people within our team. And the part of design thinking that does that is the empathize component of it. Everyone on our team understands the challenge in the same way and is working towards the same goal and challenge. And so empathy is about understanding the people within our team, as well as understanding the people that we're trying to deliver our products or services and value to. And when everyone in our team understands that challenge and is working towards that same goal, then it's a more collaborative culture as well too. Next slide. So what's really fascinating about empathy is a lot of the time in organizations, we listen to what people are saying, but it's interesting how what people say is different than what they actually do. And this reminds me of a study that I had to do back in university. I was taking a class where we had to actually record what we ate. And initially I thought I'm a healthy eater. And then I had to spend, I think, 2 weeks recording what I ate. And as I went to grab a cookie or some chocolate, I actually thought twice about it because A, I had to write it down, and B, it actually showcased that I wasn't actually a healthy eater. And I think this happens within organizations as well. As what people say and what people do are two different things. So it's really important to observe. And this gets back into understanding people at a deeper level, whether it's our customers or the people that we're working with. Sometimes when we ask our customers how satisfied are they uh, with our products, they say they're satisfied, but then they end up actually not purchasing from us again. And so it's really important in terms of, as you're looking to empathize with end users, trying to understand the types of questions that you want to be asking them as an organization, and as what are some of the things that are really important that you need to watch out for. Some of them are articulated and some of them are unarticulated. Next, please. We use empathy to understand how the values and fears of employees and clients have changed. And this is really important because at the end of the day, everyone has their own perspectives that they're bringing into work. They have their own values and fears that they're bringing into work, as well as ones that are common to the team. And when we spend time understanding one another and people in another team, it's pretty evident that there are a lot of similar values and similar fears that come out. Also, as we understand people, we can better understand their challenges as well as what their expectations are, as and what their measures of success are as well too. And there's a really good comment that I was just reading too, is if companies put as much effort and money into developing and sustaining their culture as they do into their Super Bowl ads, that would be historic. And I agree. I think we're at the cusp of some major changes that are happening in organizations. That's my hope, at least, as we see more and more companies that focus on culture being recognized for that as well. Their internal culture and how they treat their vendors and their partners as well too. If you want to be more empathetic within your organization, there's a lot of tools that you can use to understand your end users, whether it's employees, people within your team, or customers. And sometimes we also want to empathize with our customers' customers. And the reason I mention that is, for example, if we're going to the grocery store and we're purchasing detergent, let's say you're buying Tide. Well, the makers of Tide are Procter and Gamble, and they actually sell their products to grocery stores and drugstores and the Walmarts of the world. And that's their customer, but their customers are actually the consumers. And so they create ads for consumers, and it's really important. And they recognize that they need to understand not just their customers, but their customers as well. And so all of these tools are great for either direct employees, teams, partners, customers, or your customers. And tools like that you could use are empathy maps, personas, customer journey maps, interviews, observations or shadowing, surveys, questionnaires, contextual inquiry, storytelling, 5 whys, immersive experiences, affinity diagrams, role playing. I think the most important thing to think of as you are looking at empathy tools is the types of information that you think would really help for your organization, and the types of tools that your organization would be most open to and that would work in the context that you're in. Next slide, please. So one of the first tools that we always use with our customers are personas. And so what we do is we break down our end users into different categories based on their behavior. And when we do that, we want to make sure that we are understanding their challenges, their goals, their values, their fears, their expectations, their measures of success before we start anything else off. And so as we think about the different types of people, the types of end customers that we have, when we think back to the commercial, we have this phenomenal character, the main character in the commercial itself. And so what were some of his challenges? Well, I think the most obvious one is that um, he wants to capture and enjoy his life, but he doesn't have as great vision as some other folks might have. And so his biggest challenge is how can he capture some of the experiences that he is having throughout his life so that he and others can remember them. And then what are some of his values? Well, he definitely values love, connection, partnership, family. And so as the commercial was created, the commercial makers tried to think of things from this end user, this persona's perspective as they're making the commercial, as well as their audience. And so as we think about what we thought the commercial helped us feel, they had that in mind. And so they're probably, actually, I'll ask you guys, what are the different types of audience members that this commercial was intended for? Feel free to write in the chat. So when you think back to the commercial, as you're watching the journey throughout the year of his life or 2 years, what were the audience? What were some of the characteristics of the audience that they're trying to appeal to? What type of an audience is it trying to appeal to? Partners, families, yep, definitely. Low vision people, all others, yep. People that have had difficulty with technology, people with low vision, yep. I think it's also people with disabilities, yeah, that's really good. And people that are going through transitions in their lives as well, and they want to capture some of the positive transitions. There's a comment in here on women aged 30 to 75, yeah, that have a lot of already ingrained empathy sometimes as well too. And so as we're thinking about the products and the services that we are creating, who are the different types of end customers that we want to be appealing to? Next slide, please. The second tool that we use, and this one is an optional one that we use, is the empathy maps. And so what's really interesting about empathy maps, and we chat a little bit about this, is what people say and what people do are two different things. And what people say is articulated, and we can kind of see what they do as well too by observing using different observation techniques. What's really fascinating is to ask people what they think and what they feel. This is really important because, especially in work environments, if we're looking at understanding our teams better or other teams that we're working with, it's rare that we are asked what we think or how we feel, especially when it comes to newer employees too. And so these are the unarticulated needs, is asking our personas what they think and what they feel. And empathy maps can change throughout a process or a service, throughout a journey. And so it's really important to keep in mind and consider at what points are we looking at empathizing and the empathy that we want to understand from our end users. Next slide, please. And the third tool that we use most frequently is journey mapping. And so here is a beautiful journey map of this main character's life. And so we start off, I think this might be a 2, 3, maybe 5-year phase, but we start off with him and his dog, and then he has a girlfriend, or he's dating somebody, and then in the third image, he has a girlfriend. And it looks like in the fourth image, he's about to propose. In the fifth image, they have bought a place together. And then in the sixth image, they have a beautiful baby together. And so this is mapping his journey over that time frame. for us in our work environments, we want to be capturing the journey of our customers through that engagement process for however long that we want to understand their behaviors for. And what's really fascinating with journey mapping too is you can do empathy maps for each stage of the journey map itself too. And so what he's doing and what he's saying in the first image is going to be quite different than what he's doing and saying in the fourth or fifth or sixth image as well too. And so it's also not just understanding the tools, but also how to combine them and when you can combine them as well too. Next slide, please. So in thinking about journey mapping, when I go into organizations, I can't help but take a look and understand the journey and experiences from different people's perspectives. A little while ago, I went into this ice cream store in Italy, and it had two different doors. And then it had the ice cream area in front, and then a cashier on the right side beside the right door, beside the furthest door. And so I went in one door. I'm looking around and trying to figure out, do I get the ice cream first and then pay, or do I pay and then get the ice cream? And I think the challenge of understanding where my journey should start was multiplied by the fact that I didn't understand the language. And so, that it was the first time that I was there. I ended up getting in line for the ice cream first. And because it wasn't so busy, the people behind the counter were kind enough to tell me that I'm actually supposed to pay first normally, but it's okay. I can get the ice cream and then pay afterwards. And then the second time, because the ice cream was so good, I came back and I knew the process. I knew I needed to pay and then get the ice cream and then move through. And so I knew where my journey needed to begin and end, but I could see other tourists that were getting in through the other door, trying to figure out what was going on. And sometimes it's a lot easier to see challenges in our services or our products when we look at things from another person's perspective. Next slide, please. The other part about, yeah, love gelato. The other part that's really interesting, especially on that trip, was the duty-free experience. I don't know, has anybody ever shopped in another country and then was told that they could save the taxes if they went through the duty-free booth at the airport to get some of their taxes back? Maybe it's just me. What's really fascinating about it is that when you go shopping in stores in other countries and you spend a certain amount, then they'll give you a receipt that you take to the airport, and you need to give that to the duty-free counter in order to be able to get the taxes, a certain percentage of the taxes back as a tourist, and then you can go about your business. It is a very confusing process, and not understanding the language or the rules or the layout of airports makes it even more fascinating. So the airport that I was at, this booth was actually outside of the airport, like outside of the building. And so a couple of times I had to ask multiple people to make sure that I was going in the right place. I got there and the gentleman was really nice enough to process it and then give me an envelope. And because I'd done this in other countries, I knew that there was a second step. And so I was trying to figure out, okay, I need to go somewhere else to get the money. And so I asked multiple people on the main floor of the airport, the second floor of the airport, and fortunately my flight was delayed, and so I had lots of time. And then finally, I ended up going back to the first floor and talking to somebody, and they basically said I needed to mail it. And I needed to add some additional information before mailing it. And it took probably 4 or 5 people for me to understand that. And so when I think about this process, it's not the best service design, but then sometimes it's really interesting that sometimes people don't want it to be the best process either. So I was just thinking through what were the people thinking that had designed this journey. And for those that are listening in and need to leave a little bit early, we are recording the session. And if you've registered for the webinar, you will receive it later so that you can watch it later too and play it back. Next slide, please. The other thing that I want to say about journey mapping today too is that a journey starts and ends at different places and points depending on your perspective. And so, for example, I always relate it back to my own kids. When I ask them to take out the garbage, their idea of taking out the garbage is taking it from the inside of the house and putting it outside into the garbage cans that are outside. And for me, when I think about the journey of taking out the garbage, my journey in my mind ends when they take out the garbage and then put a new garbage bag into the garbage itself. And ideally, being a mom to teenagers, the journey begins when the kids see that the garbage is full rather than me telling them that the garbage is full. So as you're looking at your services and products, think about where you want that journey to start and when you want it to end. And I think this is something more businesses are starting to take into consideration. For example, when we take a look at Costco, they actually do a really good job of making sure that there's space in between parking spots in their parking lot because they want that experience to be better for their consumers. I think that that's some work that they've done in the past. They still have further work to do in terms of maybe when their parking lots are full, how to deal with that. But you get to decide with your end users where your journey start and where it ends. Next slide, please. And so we've been talking a lot about empathy, and we as an organization talk about deeper clarity and the deeper clarity method, because it's not just empathy that you need in organizations to make empathy work. There's actually a couple of steps around it that make it more impactful. And so when we think about empathy in organizations, as we've worked with organizations, we've started using a number of steps that make sure that it's much more practical to be able to have empathy in organizations and to make sure that we're getting results from all the empathy work that's being done. And so with our deeper clarity method, we have around 7 steps. It is an iterative methodology, but the first thing that needs to be done is making sure that everyone in the organization and in the team understands what that problem is. They understand what the measures of success are for the team itself. Succinct problem statement that everybody can understand and articulate, succinct measures of success, and then we can get into the empathizing phase where we're taking a look at who are our end users and then doing personas with them, doing empathy maps, journey maps, and then bringing in any data that we already have. If we're doing some other techniques, observation techniques, affinity maps, bringing that information all in and synthesizing it before we reframe what our problem is that we want to solve from our perspective and from the customer's perspective, and then coming up with ideas, prototyping, and then testing as well too. Next slide, please. And it's fascinating that organizations that regularly follow design thinking practices have higher revenues and better shareholder returns than those that don't. And so if we look at the diagrams on the right, and these are stats from McKinsey, average companies' revenues are between 3 to 6%, and those that use design thinking are more along the lines of 10%. And now, that doesn't seem like it's a large percentage, but it's more than double sometimes. And so when you think about the return to shareholders, average companies are 12 to 16%, whereas if organizations are using design thinking, it's 21%. Next slide, please. So we've been chatting a little bit about the deeper clarity method, and I think of deeper clarity as an advanced form of design thinking. It's actually advanced empathy application. And so even before you understand your customers or your end users better, even before you empathize with your team or with partners, it's really important to spend time up front in alignment, understanding shared goals and what success looks like, doing that connection and empathizing, and then reframing and then doing some experimentation. And again, it's very iterative, but I think empathizing and understanding empathizing better is just one aspect of it. It's a super important aspect that is not being done right now. And so if this is fairly new to you or your organization, it's amazing that you're starting to think about it and starting to do it. In order to advance that even more, maybe think about some of the other aspects around empathy as well once you've understood the empathize phase component of it. Next slide. Again, if you want to learn more, we do have a LinkedIn group called the Deeper Clarity Network. We are happy to host monthly webinars. And if you want, we have some information on our website. We have some self-led training. We do consulting, coaching, training around project success with Deeper Clarity method. And the coaching includes things around if you want to do more empathizing, learn more about empathizing, then that's a huge part of our coaching practice as well. And then if you want, I also have some videos on our YouTube channel on the different steps of design thinking, as well as a TED Talk. Fernanda, I'm stealing your thunder here. Do you want to take over?
Yeah, no problem. Actually, before we get into that, there is one question that we often get when we talk about empathy that we didn't get today, funny enough, but it's how many personas should we create? Especially when we're talking about public service and we're talking, our end users are all the citizens. So how do we pick which ones to represent and to think of?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, and it is one that we do get a lot too. And my generic answer is you probably want between 3 to 8 personas. And so when we're thinking about organizations or the general public, that doesn't seem like a lot, but it's considering the behavior that our end users have with us. A number of years ago, we did a project with the federal government on their next generation travel. And it was for all different types of government employees. And you can imagine, I think they're close to 300,000 federal government employees right now. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, please. And what's really fascinating is initially they had selected 8 personas. And so I thought that was really great because they got it in and were able to diagnose how people behaved with their current services and products. And then after going out and better understanding their end users, they were actually able to bring it down to 4. So you can start out with a lot, but really take a look at the behavior rather than the individual. So the group's behavior and how they interact with the product or the service. Spending that time up front to understand your end users and really taking it down to fewer personas is going to simplify your life for later. I know we've worked with organizations that have had a lot more personas, and it's harder to synthesize that information. And so spend that time up front to really understand how you want to divide up your end users based on their behavior. And that's something that takes a little bit of time. Sometimes experience helps as well too, because the fewer you have, the easier it is to work through. But it also means that you've actually thought through the problem and the behaviors a little bit more upfront. And so I would recommend 3 to 8. I think things get a little bit more complex once you start looking at your end customers and customer. And so for direct customers, 3 to 8, and then for each type of a customer, their end customers would be 3 to 8. So it can expand out quite a bit. But when you take the time to really understand what the personas are going to be like and to keep it down to a smaller number, the insights that you get are going to be so much easier to organize and synthesize and make sense of, so that you're able to really reframe your problem even better and to know how to prioritize and what to prioritize as you're creating products and services. Thank you for that question. Are there other questions? Oh, here's another question. What could be solutions if the persona steps was skipped and now the product works for most but not all? What general solutions could be used? I think it's never too late to do personas for products and services, especially because our customers end up changing. And so it's really helpful to review personas and to see if our end customers have changed, if they have changed. And if it was skipped and it works for most, not all, I would try to understand the most personas, what you consider most, what their personas look like. And then I would also create personas for those that it doesn't work for. And so I think personas are really helpful to have as a tool, not just for the initial understanding, but for also for watching for signals on how behavior is going to be changing. And if there is something that is missing, then it's really worthwhile to understand those end users a little bit better and why they don't, why the products or services aren't working with them. The reason that I started in on design thinking and looking at things from an end user was actually when I was working in a technology organization, partnering with other technology companies. And one of our partners recommended that we bring in our customers to take a look at the solutions we were prototyping and testing. And I honestly initially didn't understand why would we do that? What would the value be? But once we brought in those customers and actually talked with them, it was pretty clear that the products, services, the features that we were creating were not going to be valuable to them, but they were able to tell us what features they would love to have and that they would be willing to pay for. And so it was really a phenomenal experience. The other thing that I forgot to mention that is key to all of this, to empathizing, is actually talking with your end users. And I think that's something that's difficult for some people and organizations, both in the private and the public sector is there is a fear of talking to end users. And most of the time, end users are actually, especially if you're organized and you've thought through things really well and there's a consistent way of doing it, end users are really happy to talk to you so that you can help make their experiences even better. And I think it's in how you approach the end user groups, how organized you are as you go out to speak with them makes such a huge impact on the types of responses that you get, and also the response that you get from those end users. And it's also another opportunity to make a connection with those end users. I think if we think about ourselves, I personally love, if I'm having a hard time with a particular product or a service, someone asks me how they can make it better, I want to tell them so that I don't have to go through the struggles again, and I don't want other people to have to go through the struggles again. And so as you're thinking about creating personas, making sure that you're actually talking to your end users and thinking through how you're going to talk to them, how you're going to organize the information, and having a plan also to be able to do it iteratively is super important. And your personas, because you've brought them in earlier on in the process, are a fantastic group to be doing some of the prototyping and testing with later on as well too. So thank you so much for all the great questions. Anything else people are interested in, feel free to write it in the chat or in the Q&A, or feel free to reach out to us at info@Spring2Innovation or Nilifer@Spring2Innovation.
Thank you. Thank you, Nilifer. And of course, this is just a little bit of what you can see in our courses, the Design Thinking Level 1, Design Thinking Certification. We go even deeper in the empathy phase. I think we can say it's one of the most important phases of the design thinking process. So take a look into our courses available in our website. And thank you so much for being here today. We hope you find it valuable and it brought you some nice insights. Again, when you log out, there will be a survey. We are very thankful if you're able to reply that and share your thoughts. If you have any ideas for upcoming webinars, we're always open for it too. And we'll be sending the recording of the webinar soon, probably next week to you. So keep an eye for that. And please feel free to engage with us in any of our channels. And we also have in our website, you can find a link for a Future Proofing by Design. And yeah, that's it. We hope you can see you next time.